I mean, just acknowledge we're having a technical.
Okay. This is the meeting of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. We're having some technical difficulties in trying to make some of these workstations work, so bear with us just a moment, but we can begin. Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Aliman, Commissioner Stover,
Present.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Present.
Vice Chair Nindell,
Present.
Chair Voss.
Okay. All right. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the approval of the agenda. Do we have
Of the minutes?
approval of the agenda?
Right.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Can we have a vote? Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. The minutes. Planning Commission regular meeting minutes, February 13th, 2024. Recommendation is to approve the minutes as presented or as corrected. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Very good. Please vote. All right, public comments. At this time, pursuant to the Brown Act, any person may comment on matters of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission not listed on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the Planning Commission should not take action on or discuss matters raised during the public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to the first 10 speakers at 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers may not yield their time to others without consent of the chair. All comments are to be directed to the Planning Commission and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during public comments. Please complete and submit a speaker card to the city clerk. You'll be asked to state your name and city of residence for the record. Do we have any public comments?
We do not, sir.
All right. Then we will move on to public hearings. Recommendation to the City Council to adopt an ordinance related to cannabis consumption space operating requirements and updating the land use table. Christina Newsom, our Compliance Director, would you give us your staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. So to provide some background, currently our cannabis use types are cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, storefront, and non-storefront retail. What we're attempting to do today is repeal and replace the entertainment use type with cannabis consumption space. And a cannabis consumption space facility is a licensed cannabis retail premise where cannabis and cannabis products may be purchased for on-site consumption and consumed by persons 21 years of age and over within the confines of the facility. So a cannabis consumption space facility, the owners and operators that are currently in the city have approached the city seeking a review and the approval of cannabis consumption spaces as an addition to the use types, with the reason being that cannabis entertainment facility use has had little to no interest currently. So in total, we have 63 cannabis facilities, and this use type would be open to essentially all of those facilities. You'll hear sort of interchangeably the word lounge used with consumption space. The reason that we defined it as a consumption space is we wanted to give all of our operators the ability to have this area for sort of marketing, tourist, and education for their particular operation and not limit it to sort of the commercial downtown area or a lounge situation. So cannabis lounges require some form of entertainment currently in the ordinance, and we want to remove that sort of component of the entertainment type. So as an overview, what we're trying to do tonight is establish cannabis consumption space facility as a permissible use type, repeal and replace cannabis entertainment use type with cannabis consumption space in Title 17, impose zoning requirements for the cannabis consumption space facilities in any commercial district, industrial district, or mixed-use corridor, and establish the cannabis consumption space facilities and their regulations under Chapter 550 Cannabis Businesses of Title 5, Business and License and Regulations of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions of staff from the Planning Commission?
Well, I think that the substance of this ordinance looks good, but I did have an issue with the formatting of the ordinance itself, and I was wondering if or what style guide you guys might be using.
So I did mention your issue with the formatting with respect to definitions to the city attorney, so I'll defer to him on that.
Good evening. We don't really have a specific term or style, rather, when it comes to drafting these ordinances. But we are, of course, happy to take any feedback as to how they should be drafted.
What I would recommend is, just as the California State Bar uses the California Style Manual, that we would do the same. And if you refer to page 47 in the California Style Manual, you will see the use of footnotes or parenthetical citations. And I think that in the writing of these definitions, we're going to want, excuse me, and just in code in general, we're going to want to simplify as much as possible and make it as straightforward as possible for the public to read. Now, I come from a journalism background. In my writing, I use the Associated Press style guide. But the California Style Manual is not difficult to read or understand, and pages 47 to 57 are where you're going to find the information on how to format the definitions section and also other writing of code. So I'd love to see us excuse me, get into the same formatting that we see across the state. And just as an example, when I'm looking at in this, and I just wrote one example just because I don't want to bore you, and I can give you my notes if you want them, but because that's the kind of nerd I am. But for an example, non-storefront retail facility, and as it's written here, says shall have the same meaning as in business and professional code, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's very confusing. Rewritten, what I've got here is non-storefront retail facility, a delivery-only retail facility which sells marijuana to a customer solely and exclusively by delivery, and then in parentheses, biz and prof code, subsection 26070, parentheses A, parentheses 1, semicolon, cal code regs, comma, subsection 5414 et sequitur. Does that make sense?
I completely understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other questions for staff? No? All right, then we'll open the public hearing. Take testimony from those in favor, opposed, or in a neutral position. Do we have any public testimony?
We have none, sir.
All right. And we'll close the public hearing. Planning Commission discussion and a recommendation to the City Council to adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Desert Hot Springs. Anyone have any more discussion?
I could make a motion.
Please make a motion.
Okay. I would move to approve the recommendation to the City Council to adopt the ordinance relating to cannabis consumption, space operating requirements, and updating the land use table with the condition of rewriting as per the California Style Manual.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, may we have a vote, please? Can you press move?
I did.
Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, very good, thank you. Next on our agenda, the recommendation to the City Council to adopt an ordinance regarding cannabis nurseries. Christina Newsom, may we have your
Yes.
input? Staff report.
So this is to adopt essentially an additional use type for a nursery, which means a licensee that produces only clones, immature plant seeds, and other agricultural products specifically for the propagation and cultivation of cannabis. Currently, the city does not recognize nursery as a use type, nor have we developed operational or zoning requirements for a nursery. So a nursery would allow the operation, a cannabis cultivator to sell seeds, seedlings, and clones to other cultivation licensees. So not to be confused with an end user consumer, but other licensees. A cannabis nursery is the pivotal foundation of a cultivation operation where its growth trajectory is established. So currently, we have 63 operators in the city, and of those, 35 are cultivation. So the addition of the nursery use type could be beneficial, obviously, to those 35 cultivators, but we could also have a standalone use type, standalone facility nursery with this use type. And to give you an ordinance overview, we are proposing to establish a cannabis nursery as a permissible use type. It would permit the operation of cannabis nurseries in the highway commercial districts, business park districts, and light industrial districts, and the cannabis overlay zone in the city. And we would impose zoning requirements for cannabis nurseries by adding section 17.180.095 nursery of chapter 17.180 marijuana facilities, operation and location of title 17 zoning of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code. And we would establish that a nursery as defined in the ordinance allows businesses to produce only clones, immature plant seeds, and other agricultural products used specifically for the propagation and cultivation of cannabis. And we would further establish operational requirements under Chapter 550, which regulates cannabis businesses. And lastly, establish the imposition of a sales tax on sales conducted by cannabis nurseries. So we can think of this as just an extension of the existing retail tax in Title III. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, do we have any questions of the staff from the Planning Commission?
I just have the same comment on this one as I did on the last one.
Okay. I have just two little things. At one point under administrative approval, you say a duly approved cannabis consumption space facility with a duly approved conditional use permit and regulatory permit and in good standing with the city may request a modification of the already approved conditional use permit to operate a cannabis consumption space facility. I'm just curious, I've seen that in other places in good standing with the city. What does that mean? How do you measure good standing?
So no tax delinquency, no open code compliance matters, no, red tags on the building, so on and so forth. So no violations of any sort.
Okay. My other question is kind of more of a general question. What is how does a bail schedule work in the city?
I'll defer to you, Tuan.
What is it and how does it work?
Those are relevant for potential criminal prosecutions under our municipal code. Whenever someone is either fined or otherwise punished or sentenced in a criminal case, the bail schedule is a guide for the judges to determine the amount of money that's permissible in that case.
I see. Does the city make a recommendation to a judge?
Yes, it's pretty standard to update our bail schedule, but criminal prosecutions on our code are very rare.
Are rare?
Yeah.
Okay. That was it from me. Any other questions? Okay, let's open the public hearing. Do we have any testimony from anyone in favor, opposed, or neutral on this?
We do not, sir.
All right. We'll close the public hearing. Planning Commission discussion. Do we have anything we want to discuss on this?
No, but I could make a motion.
All right.
Okay. I move that we approve the recommendation to the City Council to adopt the ordinance regarding the cannabis nurseries with the condition of a rewrite according to the California Style Manual.
I'll second.
All right. We have a vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. We're moving on to our next one. Recommendation to the City Council amending a chapter of Title 17 zoning ordinance, Chapter 17.14, mixed-use districts. Travis, Mr. Clark, can you give us your staff report?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. So this is coming back to you for a very minor change and clarification. Since we originally presented it in January, but just as a refresher, these zoning districts were introduced in 2020, general plan update. The purpose is to provide suitable locations for a wide variety of interrelated and compatible commercial, office, residential, civic, and entertainment uses. Mixed-use corridor is located along South Palm Drive and contains many of the affordable housing sites. And mixed-use neighborhood functions as a transition zone between the higher intensity uses of commercial and lower intensity residential. So really the only change that we're making and bringing it back is just inserting the words minimum in front of the setbacks, the front yard and side. It was implied before, but we just wanted to make it completely clear that these are in fact minimum setbacks. Everything else we talked about previously is the same. Moved up the design guidelines, added the new uses such as mobile food vending, vehicle parks, event facilities, all of that sort of stuff. Remove parking, loading, circulation. That's now in the parking chapter. The really big change here in these districts, and we talked about it last time, was added single-family dwellings as a permitted use in the mixed-use neighborhood zoning district. So this is an example just north of the downtown commercial where you have a mixed-use strip of land, and it just makes sense that these infill lots would be single-family homes. And we have the same thing along Palm Drive outside of the mixed-use corridor. Again, allowing for infill lots, single-family homes on these infill lots. So that was the big change. I did want to address the discussion around the height limit. We have not changed the height limit from the 2020 zoning ordinance when the mixed-use zones were introduced. I would note that a lot of our mixed-use corridors where much of the affordable housing sites are located. And there's been a new bill that's passed, SB 330, that prevents changing a standard if in effect it's going to lower density. So if we do change that standard, we're going to have to go back to the state as part of our housing element. And I wanted to show you a map of where these are located. So the mixed-use corridor is the purple area that you see along the map, and you see the little numbers annotated to the parcels. Those are all affordable housing sites. And the darker brown color, that's residential high. You can see that they're also allocated affordable housing sites. So altogether, the city has 1,107 affordable housing units allocated to it, and these are the sites that are in the housing element that was approved by the state. So our recommendation is to recommend City Council amend Chapter 17.14 mixed-use districts and find the project category exempt from CEQA per Section 15061B3. And I'm happy to answer any questions you would have.
I just have one question. You talked about, when you were talking about the purple color areas and showed an example. So what you were saying is a vacant lot had restrictions, is no longer, Explain the impact on a vacant lot again to me.
So all the sites that are identified are vacant, right?
Right.
They're not developed, and so there is an assignment of affordable housing to those vacant lots per our
Okay.
sites inventory.
Okay, all right, I got it. All right,
That doesn't mean you couldn't take an existing, say, multifamily and make it an affordable housing, project.
okay. Do we have more questions?
I have a question. So, in theory, if we were to take the mixed-use neighborhood number of stories and maximum building height down to 2 stories and 30 feet of height, how many units of housing would we lose?
I don't know that exact number. It was a rough estimate when the numbers were created in the housing element based on the acreage of the parcel and the density that's allowed there. So some affordable housing projects will actually have a density bonus, which means they were allowed to go more than our minimums or even our maximums. So if we wanted to change that, we would have to find other affordable housing sites to move the density to.
Well, that's job security, though, isn't it?
I think it took 5 years to get the housing element through the last time, so yes, I guess it would be.
Any more questions? No more questions, staff? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anyone here to testify in favor, against, or in a neutral position?
Yes, we do.
All right. Can you state your name and residency?
Good evening. My name is Gerald McKenna. I'm a resident of Desert Hot Springs. I've lived here since 2006. Well, I made some comments. I wonder, could you put up the exhibit page for my written remarks on the screen? I'll let you try and do that for a moment. I made some comments and sent them to you, but they were based on a staff report that has subsequently been changed. And I had an email exchange with Mr. Clark, and he tells me that we're not, in fact, changing height limits tonight. But it's on your agenda, and you could change height limits tonight. And so I'd like to see you do that. I'd like to see you make a down payment on reversing some of the disastrous changes in height limits that occurred in the 2020 general plan update. Now, 2020 was a year we were all busy doing other things. I had family crisis going on, as many of you may have. It was the middle of the COVID. I was not paying attention, I admit that. But when I was told by my next door neighbor that he was about to build a 30-foot high house next to mine, I did a little research and discovered that the height limits from we now call low density residential, were changed from 20 feet to 30. When I look at this document, I'm seeing height limits of 60 feet, and with possible bonuses for additional height if they have additional units. And that is not the kind of city I want to live in. It's just not what I bargained for when I built my house here. When you have a city that's predominantly single-family residential, one story, you have privacy in your backyard. When you allow a two-story building next door, behind you, on the block behind, you don't have that privacy anymore. You suffer a major loss of utility of your property. And that's why, if you can't show the pictures, you can look at them in what I submitted. We are finding two-story buildings popping up like broken teeth in our neighborhoods. And they are destroying the utility of the adjacent properties. And there will be a price to pay for that. So if it requires a change in the housing element, yeah, let's make that change. We'll go to the state. I'll go with you if you like. We have friends up there. We can put a down payment here on rolling back some of these, I will call them disastrous changes. I think it's vandalism, actually, to change the zoning code without involving the public and having a serious debate. This just happened quietly. Nobody knew. I didn't know. My neighbor didn't know until he went in to talk about plan check. So let's make a start on changing these height limits. Let's do what you're supposed to do. Do you know what this is? It's a rubber stamp. Don't be this. That's all.
All right, any other testimony?
We have none.
All right, we will close the public hearing. Planning Commission discussion.
I tend to concur with the gentleman and his opinion that a house or a structure should not be so high next to an existing structure that it obscures the daylight and you can't, you lose the value of your home. So I think that is worth a discussion, don't you? It's a discussion,
Discussion, sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's discuss.
Well, I mean, do you think that who takes precedence, a new development or an existing homeowner? Who has the legal right to, I can understand the gentleman's case, and I don't see that there is much harm in keeping in the neighborhoods, keeping us down to 2 stories and 30 feet. Although I did notice that we are talking about a different area of town than the low-density residential today. We are talking about mixed use, which is a different area. But still, the argument exists that, if you're building next to a single-story home, and you have a 45-foot house all of a sudden next to it, that you're diminishing the value of the existing house.
What's the height limit for low-density residential?
It's 30 feet,
Yeah, okay. So,
which is about a 2-story house.
yeah, it's a 2-story with a normal roof.
Right.
So in low-density residential where most of us live,
Yeah.
you can't build any higher than a normal 2-story home. But to
Exactly,
meet-
but we're
to
talking a
meet
different-
housing numbers, do we build up or do we build out? Because one of the two has to happen.
I agree. But I wonder, when we're looking at the corridor as opposed to the neighborhoods in mixed use, if there really is that much of a net loss in the neighborhoods, if we were to reduce that to 2 stories as opposed to 3. Just in the neighborhood, not in the corridor. I think the corridor, it's important that we need to have apartment buildings as well. I mean, that's something that we really need, and housing is a crisis, so.
What's the height maximum for medium density and high density?
So you mean in the neighborhood versus the corridor?
Yeah.
It's 45 for the neighborhood and 60 for the corridor, mixed use.
So they can go 4 maybe.
3. I would
Tops.
say 3, yeah.
Yeah, it's 3, I'm looking at it right here. In mixed use, it's 3-story, 45-foot neighborhood. Corridors, 4-story, and 60-foot.
So a high-density builder will lose about 1/3 for a 3rd floor. Usually a little more. 3rd floors usually have a few more units. And we really go back to state housing numbers. So,
That's a good point. Well, if we're talking about state housing numbers, why are we not allowing caretaker units in the mixed-use district? Because those are housing units as well. I mean, we could ostensibly replace these missing units with caretaker units.
Well, we have 1,104 assigned affordable housing units, so that's how many that's allocated to us, which is actually coming up next in the annual housing report.
Right. Okay.
Travis, to make changes in the future, what steps does the city have to go through if we decide to lower the?
We would have to find additional sites to move density to, and, do the calculations on that. And we would have to amend the housing element and get it approved by the state for these new sites.
And that could take how long?
I don't want to care to guess. I know that, the existing one took a while to get through. There was, a legal suit brought against the city for the housing element because it was not meeting those requirements of the state. So I do not know.
Is there anything preventing us from raising the height limit to 5 stories and 75 feet in the corridor and reducing in the neighborhoods? And that would, on the net, probably gain housing.
Without running the computations, I could not say.
And we start getting into
Right.
certain classes being forced to live in certain areas.
There's
Okay,
actually,
fair enough.
there's actually very little mixed-use neighborhood zoning. It's really just a strip kind of along Pearson, north and south, and along Palm, east and west. The other portion where we have mixed-use neighborhood is out towards the Skyborn area. There's a lot more mixed-use corridor zoning.
Okay.
And is there any reason that we're not permitting caretaker quarters?
For this particular,
Other uses in the same chart?
like I say, typically a caretaker's quarters is something you would find at like a storage unit, maybe a lumber yard or an industrial facility, that sort of stuff. It's not something we would typically assign to, a retail or commercial business. And I think in some cases, like, let's say massage establishment, we would not want a caretaker's quarter there.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's extra housing. I mean, if, let's say you have a sandwich shop or something and you have you have a little apartment in the back, and then that way when where you go away for the weekend or something and the place is locked up, that there's somebody around. I mean, you're addressing housing and security in one. Do you guys have a problem with adding, with permitting caretakers' quarters in the mixed use?
I don't, no.
Chris, do you have a problem with permitting caretakers' quarters in mixed use? I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, go right ahead.
Okay. I would like to move that where is it? Recommend to the City Council amending the chapter of Title 17 zoning ordinance 17.14 mixed-use districts. That we approve that with an addition to permit caretakers' quarters in the mixed-use district neighborhood and mixed-use neighborhood commercial district.
And just to clarify, this is permitted by right. Not a AUP or CUP, but permitted by right.
Well, I sense a little trepidation, maybe an AUP.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, maybe we have a vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, now we move on to the administrative calendar, 2023 Housing Element Annual Progress Report. Travis Clark, please.
Okay, so it's that time of year when we present our report up to the state, to the City Council, then up to the state, basically reporting to Housing and Community Development the progress that we've made for the previous calendar year. So this happens around this time each year. I guess jokingly, the state has the due date April 1st, so that's why we're here in March to get it done. Just a little bit of background here. It's for the current planning cycle of 2021 to 2029. So we're now into 2024. So we've got basically about 6 some odd months left, 6 years and some odd months left. In the report, which is a very cumbersome spreadsheet, I'm sure that you saw, and I'll give a shout out to Kat Palmer for putting all of this together. A lot of sifting through the systems to extract this data and put it in the format that the state wants. But we're required to submit data for entitled, permitted, and completed housing units, as well as progress on the program implementation. We're also required to submit data on the income level for the units, very low, low, moderate, and above moderate. So this is kind of the snapshot in one slide of how we did in 2023. The big jump here is in the entitled area, 476 units versus 107. The bulk of those, the vast majority, are single family. On the permitted side, however, we slipped a little bit. That's kind of because some of the larger projects have been winding down or finishing up, I should say. For example, Lennar Village 2, they have, I think, maybe 15 houses left to complete that village. And on the completed side, it went up again for the reverse because we had a lot of the Lennar homes which were completed. I will note that of the 133 permitted, 58 of those were infill lots. And I still believe that's a good thing because we have a lot of vacant lots in the city that become places where people dump trash and other things. And so every time we build a house there, that helps clean up the city a little bit. So just a note on what's in the pipeline, Aventura Palms, which you considered at the last meeting, they're actually ready to pull permits because they already had some platted lots. So they can begin pulling those permits. Rancho Descanso is under construction. They have the streets going in, all the utilities going in. They're actually going to install their peripheral landscaping, and then they can start pulling permits. And then Skyborn Village 3, it is entitled. It will come back to you for design review for the homes, but we got that package actually last week, and so hopefully you'll be seeing it at the next meeting. And that's the big number here. That's 286 lots that are part of Village 3. So just how are they entitled by structure? As I mentioned, the vast majority of them are single family, 431, 16 ADUs, and I would note that 4 of the ADUs are using the city's pre-approved plans. Multifamily, this is like duplex, triplex, quadplex, 22 units there, and 5 or more multifamily at 6 and 1 manufactured home. So this is our RENA allocation. You can see how we're currently progressing, I guess. Overall, to date, we've only met a target of 8.2% of the total housing units that have been assigned to us. So 3,553 versus 3,873. You will note in the chart the vast majority of our allocation is moderate and above moderate. And so we were able to make a case to SCAG that Desert Hot Springs is already affordable in many ways. And so because of that, our assignment tilted more towards moderate and above moderate. However, we still have 1,104 affordable units assigned to us. So just a little note on what's happening there. So we did have 12 affordable housing units completed this year. 10 were from the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. Unfortunately, they were permitted in 2020, so we don't get credit for those, even though they were finished this year. They were permitted before the RENA started. However, we have 2 Habitat for Humanity homes that were both permitted and completed in this last calendar year. So what's on the horizon? So we are working with the county and the affordable housing developer for their site behind the library. That they have finally completed their agreement with the county, and so we're going to be bringing them in for what we call pre-application meeting to talk about the requirements of the zoning district and all the things that they have to do to go through the entitlement process. So that's, a hopeful sign that we'll be making more progress on the affordable housing, but we've got to do a lot more to meet those RENA numbers. So some other activities that are described in the plan, we did launch our pre-approved ADU plans, had 2 workshops, one in English and one in Spanish. We've also teamed with Riverside County, and this is their Housing and Workforce Solutions Group, on a first-time homebuyer program, down payment assistance program, and home enhancement program, and conducted workshops on all of those. And then, as I mentioned, city staff did participate in selection of the developer for the Riverside County affordable housing site. So our recommendation is to adopt the resolution of the Planning Commission recommending the City Council direct staff to submit the 2023 HCD Housing Element Award, sorry for that, report, and then this will be presented to council, and then it would go to state directly after that. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I just have one question, kind of shows my ignorance of all of this. When an affordable housing unit is completed and goes on the market, so to speak, how long before someone moves in? Is it hours before someone's moved in, or is there a whole long process to find the residents?
There's usually a wait list for affordable housing. Many other projects throughout the valley that have been completed usually have a wait list. Obviously, it depends on the location and the type of housing, but they get filled up pretty quickly because there are a lot of qualifying residents. A lot of these projects are made possible through Section 8 vouchers, and that's what keeps the rent affordable. So again, that goes back to the county and how many vouchers are available, and it's really competitive to get the vouchers. You have to have a good project, you have to have all the financing in place, and to put together one of these projects, it is very, very complicated. There's probably 7 to 12 sources of financing that are needed to, build one of these projects. But to be truly affordable, as the state defines it, these are then deed restricted, so they are restricted to affordable families throughout a certain period of time.
Okay. So you need a resolution, right?
Yes, need to
Okay.
approve a resolution.
Someone want to approve a resolution?
All right. I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Desert Hot Springs, California, recommending the City Council to direct staff to submit the 2023 HCD Housing Element Annual Progress Report.
Second?
All right. Can we have a vote? Oh, that was you.
Oh, I think I just voted.
I pushed the wrong button.
I think I pressed against on accident.
Change it. Not yet, but I will. I voted to move it. That was my mistake.
Yeah, it kind of was jumping around on that.
Over here, and motion passes unanimously.
All right. Okay, only a couple of things left on our agenda. Public comments, opportunities given to those members of the public who have not addressed the Planning Commission on an item which is not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Do we have any public comments?
We have none, sir.
All right. Chair and Planning Commission member reports. Do we have any reports? No.
I would like to report that James Nindell runs a mean meeting.
Thank you. You're kind to the elderly. Community Development Director report.
I don't have a lot for you this evening, but just to look ahead to the April meeting, we have a couple of entitlement cases. Like, as I mentioned, hopefully we'll have Lennar Village 3 ready for you. I believe Christina has another update that she's planning to make to Title 17 with regards to cannabis. And then I was just learned today that we're hoping to bring the Parks Master Plan to that meeting as well. So that's all we have lined up for April at this point.
Okay. Anything else? Then I'll adjourn the meeting.
Good job, Jim.
Thank you.
Your microphone's on.